You've seen them. The person who works all day, hits the gym after, meets friends in the evening, and wakes up the next morning ready to do it again. No complaints, no visible strain. While you're calculating how many hours until you can collapse into bed, they're adding another task to their list. Not from pressure, but from what looks like genuine capacity. They don't seem to be pushing through. They seem to be running on a different fuel entirely. At first, you assume it's performance. No one can actually feel that alive. They must be hiding their exhaustion, caffeinating harder, or heading for a crash that hasn't come yet. But time passes, and the crash doesn't arrive. They keep going. Not manic, not wired, just steady, present, available in a way that makes you wonder what you're missing. What do they have that you don't? It's easy to feel resentment, or to assume they're simply lucky, blessed with genetics, circumstances, some invisible advantage you weren't given. And maybe that's part of it. But there's something else happening beneath the surface. Something in how their system operates, how their relationship with energy was built, how they move through life without the friction that drains everyone else. This isn't about superhuman ability. It's about understanding a different configuration. Because people who never seem to tire aren't running on magic. They're running on systems, internal and external, that most exhausted people never learn to build. And those systems can be understood. Not to copy them exactly, but to glimpse what's possible when energy isn't constantly leaking out. Energy isn't random. It's a resource that evolution sculpted carefully over millions of years. Organisms that burned too hot died young. Organisms that couldn't mobilize when needed became prey. Survival belonged to those who found the balance, capable of intense effort when necessary, capable of deep recovery when possible. The human body is designed for sustainable energy. The question is why some people access that design better than others. There's a biological spectrum. Some nervous systems are naturally calibrated for efficiency. They mobilize fully when needed, then return to baseline quickly. They don't waste fuel on false alarms. They don't stay revved when the threat has passed. This isn't superiority. It's configuration. Like a car that shifts gears smoothly versus one that grinds between them. Both can drive. One just uses less gas. Throughout human history, tribes needed both types. The high-alert individuals who scanned for danger, the steady ones who could work long hours, travel long distances, maintain effort over time. Neither was better. They served different functions. But in modern life, with its chronic low-grade stress and lack of real recovery, the high-alert system often burns out while the steady system keeps humming. People with sustainable energy aren't ignoring stress. Their bodies simply process it differently. Cortisol spikes and falls instead of staying elevated. The parasympathetic system, the rest and digest mode, activates easily. They inherited or developed a system that returns to calm by default. It's not that they don't feel pressure. It's that pressure doesn't get stuck in their body the way it does for others. There's a switch inside the body that most people don't know how to flip. The autonomic nervous system has two main modes: sympathetic, which activates for action, and parasympathetic, which allows for recovery. In a healthy rhythm, these two modes alternate. You rise to meet a challenge, then you settle back down. Effort, then ease. Tension, then release. The tireless seem to have mastered this rhythm without trying. Their nervous system doesn't get stuck. When the stressor passes, they actually come down. Their heart rate slows, their muscles release, their breathing deepens. Not because they practice techniques, but because their body remembers how. Recovery isn't something they schedule for the weekend. It happens in small moments throughout the day, between meetings, during meals, in the pause between tasks. They're resting constantly, in ways invisible to the eye. This isn't laziness. It's efficiency. They're not doing less. They're spending less on everything. Their body doesn't hold tension that isn't needed. Their mind doesn't churn when there's nothing to solve. The engine runs, then idles, then runs again. This constant micro-recovery means they never dig themselves into the deep deficit that exhausted people know so well. They don't need a week off to recover from a hard month. They recover as they go. Some of this is wiring, but not all of it. The nervous system is shaped by experience, and theirs learned somewhere that rest was allowed. The body doesn't stay vigilant when it trusts that safety will return. Their system trusts. And that trust, built over years or maybe inherited from a calm environment, is what makes sustainable energy possible. The tireless often come from homes where rest wasn't radical. It was just normal. Parents who sat down after work without guilt. Weekends that had space in them. A pace of life that included pause. No one performed exhaustion as proof of worth. No one treated stillness as suspicious. The child absorbed a simple message. You're allowed to stop. And that permission became wired into their body. In these homes, energy was modeled as renewable. Adults got tired, rested, and returned. There was no drama around depletion, no martyrdom in overwork. The child watched and learned that effort and recovery are partners, not opposites. They never developed the belief that rest must be earned through suffering. They simply rested when tired, played when energized, and grew up with an intuitive understanding of their own rhythms. Some learned even more. They learned that doing nothing was safe, that they wouldn't be criticized for sitting still, that their value wasn't measured in output. This is rarer than it sounds. Many families, even loving ones, transmit anxiety about productivity. But in homes where presence mattered more than performance, children developed a relationship with rest that most people never access. It became a resource, not a reward. This early environment shaped their nervous system before they could think about it. The baseline was set. The world is manageable. Recovery is allowed. You don't have to be on alert all the time. They didn't learn techniques for stress management. They just never absorbed the chronic tension that requires managing. Their energy isn't a mystery. It's the fruit of a childhood that gave them permission to have it. There's a hidden drain that exhausts people without them knowing. The gap between who they are and who they're pretending to be. Every adjustment, every performance, every suppression of authentic impulse costs energy. The tireless often have something others don't: alignment. The self they show the world is close to the self they actually are. There's no mask to maintain, no double life to run. This alignment isn't about being fearless or not caring what others think. It's subtler than that. They've built lives that fit, jobs that match their actual interests, relationships where they can be themselves, environments that don't require constant adaptation. They're not spending energy becoming someone else every time they walk into a room. The fit is close enough that friction stays low. Some of this is luck, the right opportunities, the right people. But some of it is choice. The tireless tend to be allergic to situations that drain them without return. They leave parties when they're done, not when it's polite. They say no to obligations that feel wrong. They disappoint people sometimes. The cost of alignment is occasional conflict, but the reward is energy that doesn't leak through cracks between self and world. People who are always exhausted often live in constant compromise. They work jobs that don't fit. They maintain relationships that require performance. They say yes when they mean no, over and over, year after year. The energy doesn't go to anything visible. It goes to the invisible labor of being someone they're not. The tireless have found a different way. Build a life that doesn't require you to leave yourself at the door. The tireless aren't just doing more. They're wanting more. There's a difference between pushing through tasks because they must be done and being pulled toward them because something inside says yes. One is work. The other is fuel. The people who never seem to tire have often found something that genuinely interests them. And interest is one of the most renewable energy sources that exists. Desire creates its own momentum. When you want something, the brain releases dopamine before you even get it. Anticipation itself is energizing. The tireless wake up with something pulling them forward. Not pressure, not obligation. Pull. They're curious about what the day holds. They have projects that excite them. Their work might be hard, but it doesn't feel like pushing a boulder. It feels like chasing something worth catching. This isn't about finding your passion in some dramatic sense. It's simpler than that. It's about having enough genuine interest in your life that energy flows toward it naturally. The tireless have managed to arrange things so that what they do connects to what they actually care about. Not perfectly, not always, but enough that the majority of their effort feels aligned with real desire. When life is empty of want, everything becomes effort. You have to manufacture motivation from scratch every morning. But when life contains even a few things you truly want, results you're curious about, people you want to see, projects you're building, the energy generates itself. The tireless aren't superhuman. They've just found enough genuine yes in their lives that they don't have to run on pure willpower. Willpower exhausts. Desire sustains. Inside every brain is a system designed to motivate action. Dopamine is its currency. Not the pleasure chemical, as most people believe, but the anticipation chemical. It fires when you expect something good is coming. It creates the feeling of wanting, reaching, moving toward. When this system works well, life has a natural pull. When it's depleted or dysregulated, everything feels flat. The tireless often have dopamine systems that stay consistently lit. This isn't about being happy all the time. It's about having a brain that responds to possibility. The tireless see a new project and feel a spark. They imagine a future outcome and something in them mobilizes. Their reward circuitry hasn't been worn down by chronic disappointment or numbed by overstimulation. It fires appropriately, enough to motivate, not so much that it crashes. A steady flame rather than spikes and collapses. Some of this is genetic. Dopamine receptor density, baseline production, sensitivity to reward. These vary person to person, but environment shapes the system too. Brains that were rewarded for effort, that experienced anticipation followed by actual payoff. Develop trust in the loop. Expect good things. Work toward them. Receive reward. The circuit strengthens. The tireless often have a history of this loop working, so their brain keeps investing in it. The exhausted often have the opposite history. Anticipation led to disappointment. Effort didn't produce results. The system learned to stop investing. Dopamine doesn't fire when nothing ever pays off. Over time, the motivational engine goes quiet. The tireless aren't running on a different fuel. They're running on the same fuel that exhausted people have lost access to. Their system simply never learned to stop expecting good things. The tireless have a word that the exhausted often struggle to speak. No. Not aggressively, not coldly, just clearly. They know what drains them and they don't volunteer for it. They decline invitations without guilt. They leave situations that aren't serving them. They disappoint people sometimes, and survive it. This isn't selfishness, it's energy management, and it's one of the biggest differences between those who last and those who burn out. Boundaries aren't walls, they're filters. They let in what nourishes and keep out what depletes. The tireless have learned to build these filters instinctively. They recognize when a commitment will cost more than it gives. They sense when a person takes more than they offer. They don't need to analyze it. Their body tells them, and they listen. The exhausted often have the same signals but override them constantly. They feel the drain and say yes anyway. This skill is rarely taught. Most people are trained for the opposite, to be accommodating, available, agreeable. They learn that their energy belongs to whoever asks for it. The tireless unlearned this somewhere. They decided, consciously or not, that their capacity is finite and worth protecting. They give generously but not automatically. They help but not at the cost of themselves. There's a gate, and they stand at it. The result compounds over time. Each protected hour becomes available for something that matters. Each avoided drain preserves fuel for genuine investment. The tireless aren't doing more, they're leaking less. Their energy isn't greater at the source. It just arrives at the destination intact because they stopped letting it spill on the way. There's a battle most people fight every day without naming it. The part that wants to rest versus the part that calls that lazy. The desire to speak up versus the fear of conflict. The authentic impulse versus the safe performance. This internal friction is exhausting, not because of what you do, but because of the war beneath what you do. The tireless often have something rare, peace between their inner parts. This doesn't mean they never doubt. It means the doubt doesn't split them. When they make a decision, they make it. When they rest, they actually rest. No voice in the background accusing them of weakness. When they work, they're not simultaneously resenting the work. There's a unity of motion. The whole self moves in one direction instead of being torn between opposing forces. That unity conserves enormous energy. Inner war is learned. The child criticized for resting develops an inner critic that never stops. The person shamed for their desires learns to fight those desires forever. The one who was told they're too much becomes divided. The self that wants to expand. The self that demands shrinking. These conflicts run constantly, burning fuel even during sleep. The tireless either never developed these splits or found a way to heal them. Integration is the word psychologists use. It means the parts of you are working together instead of against each other. The tireless tend to be more integrated. Not perfect, not without complexity, but without the constant internal combat that drains others. Their energy isn't spent suppressing themselves. They've made some kind of peace with who they are, and that peace is worth more than any productivity system ever invented. The tireless don't rest more than others. They rest better. Their breaks are actual breaks, not scrolling while feeling guilty, not half-working while calling it relaxation, not collapsing in exhaustion while the mind keeps spinning. When they stop, they stop. Their body knows the difference between performance and pause, and that difference is everything. Watch how they spend an evening. There's no constant productivity in the background. No mental list running while they try to relax. They're not earning rest. They're taking it cleanly without negotiation. A meal is just a meal. A conversation is just presence. Sleep is actual surrender, not a restless wait for morning. Their off switch works, and because it works, their on switch works too. This quality of rest comes from permission. Somewhere they learned that stopping is allowed, fully without justification. The exhausted often rest with one foot on the gas. They're physically still but mentally rehearsing tomorrow. They watch a show while answering messages. They lie down but won't let go. The body never receives the signal that the emergency is over, so it never truly recovers. The tireless have also learned to match their rest to their need. When their body is tired, they sleep. When their mind is tired, they do something physical. When they're socially drained, they find solitude. When they're starved for connection, they seek it. Rest isn't one thing to them. It's a precise response to a specific depletion. This accuracy makes their recovery efficient. They don't waste hours on rest that doesn't restore what's actually empty. Here's the truth the tireless won't always tell you. They get tired too. They have hard days, heavy weeks, moments when their body demands more than they can give. They're not machines. They're not superhuman. The difference isn't that they never deplete. It's that they recognize depletion early and respond before it becomes collapse. Their energy looks endless because they never let it run all the way down. The myth of the tireless person does damage to everyone, including them. It creates an impossible standard. Others look at them and feel deficient. They look at themselves and feel pressure to maintain the image. But underneath the steady output is a human body with limits, managed carefully enough that the limits rarely show. The magic isn't unlimited fuel, it's intelligent consumption. They've learned their warning signs. The subtle drop in mood before exhaustion hits. The slight edge in their voice that signals depletion. The moment when tasks start feeling harder than they should. Where others push through these signals, the tireless pause. They take the break before the break becomes mandatory. They rest at 10% empty instead of waiting until 0. This small difference prevents the deep deficits that take weeks to repair. There's humility in this, an acknowledgement that they're not exempt from human limits, just attentive to them. The tireless aren't performing invincibility, they're practicing sustainability. They've made peace with being finite. And, paradoxically, accepting their limits is exactly what lets them do so much within them. The myth is endless energy. The reality is respected boundaries. The gap between the tired and the tireless isn't fixed. It's not destiny or genetics alone. It's patterns, learned, reinforced, and changeable. The tireless aren't a different species. They're people who, through luck or effort or circumstance, built systems that work. And systems can be studied. Not to copy them perfectly, but to understand what's possible when energy is treated as something to protect rather than something to spend. The first lesson is permission. The tireless gave themselves permission to rest without earning it, to say no without guilt, to stop before breaking. Most exhausted people are waiting for someone to grant this permission. It won't come. The permission has to be taken, claimed, practiced until the body believes it. This is harder than it sounds when every message says your worth is in your output. But it's the foundation everything else is built on. The second lesson is alignment. Energy leaks fastest through the cracks between who you are and how you live. Every performance, every suppressed truth, every yes that should have been no, these are holes in the container. The tireless have fewer holes. Not because they're selfish, but because they built lives that fit. This takes time. It takes hard choices. But every step toward authenticity is a step toward energy that doesn't drain. The third lesson is desire. Find something worth wanting. Not a should, not an obligation, but a genuine pull. Even a small one. Interest is fuel that renews itself. Without it, you're running on willpower alone. And willpower always runs out. The tireless aren't more disciplined. They've just found enough real yes in their lives that discipline isn't the main engine. If this put words to something you've observed but never understood, you're not alone. Energy isn't mysterious, it's a system. And systems can be changed. Slowly, imperfectly, but genuinely. The tireless aren't showing you what you lack. They're showing you what's possible when you stop leaking and start protecting what you have.